Hello, my Facebook family, YouTube family, Instagram family. We are back here today, and we got a good show for you today because we're talking all about educators making the laws and teachers, educators being at the table when important decisions are being made. And today, our very special guest is coming in right now, and I am going to let her introduce herself. You've probably been waiting for her. And there she is. Hello, Dr. Eliz. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are y'all doing tonight?
We are doing excellent.
Yes, we're doing good. We're always good when there are teachers at the table.
I mean, who isn't, right?
Yes. Well, listen, go ahead and introduce yourself to our audience and kind of give us a little bit of your backstory because it was when you told me it was very interesting. It's not just the run of the mill, you became a teacher and then a college professor. No, it has a whole backstory, which is great, which makes that story so much more appealing to people because your perspective is different from everybody else's.
I hope so, right? Okay, so again, thank you so much for having me on the show. I really appreciate it. And again, it's great to be surrounded by educators, the best of the best, right?
Of course we are.
So a bit about me. I was born and raised in Sugar Land, Texas. And then when I was about 8.5, we moved to Holland for 2.5 years. And then we moved to Katy for about 11 months, then to England for about 5.5 years. And then I graduated. Right. It was a lot of back and forth. And then I graduated from Katy Taylor in 2002. Spent my last 2 years.
Yeah, I graduated.
That's awesome. See, we're so young, right?
We all stop it.
Well, no, we're looking at our 25-year reunion coming up and being like, has it really been 25 years?
25 years. I can't believe it.
Right?
I know.
Okay, so after me and Rebecca and I walked across the stage in 2002,
Of course.
I went to Trinity University and got my undergrad in computer science and studio art. I was a double major, and then went and got my master's in management of technology at UTSA. And I was about to go to Tulane to get my PhD in healthcare management when my mother unfortunately passed away. And I'm an only child, and my dad was moving back to Katy, and I felt it was important for me to, parent the parents, right?
Yes.
Which is exhausting, right? And so I moved back to Katy, and I went and got my master's in healthcare informatics, and I was going to get my PhD in that and then go into healthcare informatics. But as I'm doing that degree, I'm looking at the quality of the professors that are teaching me in my program, and I'm thinking, well, no wonder we don't have a lot of graduates in these programs, right?
Yeah.
No wonder students are struggling. The quality of the education, in my opinion, of course, was really not that great. And there wasn't a lot of support for students, right? It was kind of like, okay, you're in the program, go off, do things, right? Which, I mean, yes, we're in graduate school, but you still need, that's the reason we're in graduate school, to understand more, right? And to have the guidance of our professors and mentors. And so I had been working at the Princeton Review since 2005, and I still work at the Princeton Review as an instructor, as a corporate trainer, and a textbook author. And I was like, I really want to figure out the issues with education. And I know a lot of it has to do with standardized testing because I work for the Princeton Review.
Right.
So I applied for my doctorate in education at the University of Houston. and got my doctorate in curriculum and instruction with a focus on learning, design, and technology. And right after that, I graduated in 2017 in May, and I realized nobody was running on the Democratic ticket for the State Board of Education in District 7, which was my district, and all of Southeast Texas, and a very gerrymandered district as well. But someone should be fighting for actual education. And the man who had held that position for about 2 decades, his name was David Bradley. And he had said things like, if you can point to where it says that fish walked out of the ocean on feet, then I'll give you $10,000. But otherwise, we need to have, a biblical standpoint. And I understand if parents want their children to be exposed to that, but that's something they need to do outside of the public education.
Absolutely, it is.
And they have Christian schools for that.
That's right.
Absolutely.
That's right.
Yeah. And so ran for SBOE. We didn't win, but we moved the needle about 8 to 9 points, which was I thought pretty significant for that district at the time. And while I was going around, it wasn't just education, right? It was healthcare in these rural areas. And it was, what about the cost of living, right? Like, I'm a teacher and I drive for Uber when I'm done at school. And like, that shouldn't be the way things are.
Thank you.
It just doesn't afford the dignity and respect that individuals who are in these positions should be afforded. Right? Like if we look in Scandinavian countries, teachers are treated like medical doctors because they're valued for their knowledge and what they provide, because we're training the future, right?
Right. That's absolutely right.
And so I decided to then run for HD 28, which turned out to be a special election that year because Representative John Zerwas resigned. And it was supposed to be a bellwether election for the 2020 cycle because in 2018, Democrats had done really well.
Right.
Like taking 12 seats back in the House, and it was like, oh, we're on the upswing.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, that upswing did not last.
Right.
And we did not win in the 2019 special or in the 2020 general. And I decided, okay, well, this is enough for now. And actually went back to school and got another master's in public administration because I was like, if I really want to do this, I need to know more about what is actually happening in the public.
Right.
And I've been the president of the Katy Area Democrats since 2023, and just been also working with 2 groups, Katy Educational Excellence Partners and Katy Educational Advocates, which were formed in response to the MAGA school board takeover.
Oh, the Moms of Liberty takeover.
There you go. And so for the past 2 cycles, we've successfully defeated the Moms for Liberty candidates. And then I decided, you know what? A bunch of people had approached me about running again, trying to add some excitement and energy, especially regarding education, which is my passion, right? And so I decided, okay, well, let's do this. Let's run for HD 26 this time.
Yeah.
That's probably way more than you wanted to know, though. So I apologize.
No, we wanted to know the whole trajectory.
That's right. And what I would like for you to do now is kind of make the distinction between HD 28 and 26. So what are the borders of, so to speak, of those 2 districts?
Right. Okay. So HD 26 now encompasses about half of what HD 28 was before.
Right.
So before the redistricting in 2021, HD 28 was one of the largest districts in Texas, and it was disproportionate because you're supposed to have an average number. And so after the 2021 redistricting, they cut out the Fulshire area, the Orchard area, Simonton, essentially all of the things to the west of 1463, which is right on the Fulshire border. And so now we have Katy, not the city of, just part of the city of Katy, below I-10.
Right.
And so Katy, Cinco Ranch, Richmond, Pecan Grove, and the northeast part of Rosenberg.
You know, it was, let me say this. I'm glad you gave us that backstory, because I want people who are watching this to really understand well where we're sitting as a state when it comes to the agencies and the organizations that are supposed to be protection barriers for our schools and children, i.e. the State Board of Education, i.e. TEA. Of late, those have become, and I'm just going to put it out there like it is. They're supposed to be protecting the interest of our children, all of our children, regardless of their religious beliefs, regardless of their ethnicity, regardless of anything that has to do with things that are outside of the realm of school. They're supposed to be a protective barrier. In the last, I'm going to say probably within the last 5 years, I'm going to say 5, because 5 is when it's come on really, really strong, right after, right before President Biden took office. Those agencies have almost become a puppet agency of government. And meaning that, and when I say a puppet agency, I mean that the well-being of children, the well-being of the students is not at the forefront, but the politics is at the forefront. And when you have a board that is stacked in a way that, because of districting, okay, that is stacked in a way that you're not going to have the type of representation that you need to be able to make sure that you are being a safety net for all of the children of Texas. That's an issue. You know what, Liz? I've been a history teacher for 17 years. And here's my thing. I have students who can tell me exactly what happened in a 15-minute period. They can tell me exactly what happened from colonization all the way through Reconstruction, because I teach from colonization to Reconstruction. I'm an 8th grade teacher. So they can tell me that in their own words, and they can express that very eloquently. But if that is what is supposed to be able to be processed in an effective way on a history test that they take for standardized testing, i.e. the STAR test, what would make it advantageous for me as the adults in the room to make that test where it's difficult for kids to understand because of the verbiage? Just the verbiage, not whether or not it is the information can be regurgitated to whoever is listening, but the verbiage. To me, I had to ask myself, and I remember in 2018, I went back to when I was with HISD. I'm not with HISD any longer, but when I was with HISD, I was so angry when I actually got a chance to look at the test. Now, you know, we're not supposed to do this, but when you're proctoring that test, you walk around and you are looking at your children, your students taking that test. So you can see what some of those questions look like.
Mm-hmm.
The way that the questions were worded. I, as a person who does not process information as a 13 or 14-year-old, can look at it and understand what's being said. But they cannot do that because they don't have the frame of reference. When you put that in front of them and you say, do this and do it correctly, is your goal to set them up for failure because you're changing the verbiage so it's difficult for them to understand it, to be able to give you a correct answer? Or should your goal have been to see whether or not the children know the information?
I would argue that our goal should be based on what the educational outcomes are. I remember specifically from the time period you're talking, there was even that question on the language art star that the
Yes.
author of the poem was like, there is no correct answer to this question. I know, I wrote the poem.
Right, right.
And it was kind of like, well, what are we doing here, guys? All we're doing
Yes.
is feeding millions and millions of dollars to the test writing company, which
And
makes
you know what's so
sense.
crazy? I did a research for the Houston Federation of Teachers, our one of the largest teachers unions in the state of Texas. And Union strong, right? So I did a research article, and it was another young lady in in my cohort who also did. We did a teacher leader program, and teacher leader 2.0. So this is like for teachers to really just be leaders over other teachers. And in her research, she found out because her research was on money management of STAR and the millions of dollars. When she said that $44 million are designed or is set aside for, and all the people who profit from that $44 million, my jaw was on the floor.
It makes so much more sense now, though, right? Like,
Right.
why
And
do
it
they
had nothing,
do it?
it
Well,
had
let's
nothing to
line our pockets.
right.
Yes.
It had nothing to do, and none of that 44 million touched school districts, teachers, students at all. Everybody was profiting off of STAR except the people that are affected by STAR.
Well, and Liz, let me, you ran for the State Board of Education, and I'm not sure that the gentleman that was that you were talking about, who had that type of attitude that you kind of told us about. Here's the thing. I presented this. If we need to really ask ourselves, what is the goal of the test? What is the goal of testing? To me, the goal should be to know whether or not the children, our students, know what got our country from right here at this point. I mean, from when colonization occurred, all the way to where we are now. That should be the goal. And however, if they can draw a picture and show me they know it, I'll take it. If they can write a rap and show me that they know it, I'll take it. If they can put that on a standardized test and show me they know it, I'll take it. What is our goal here? Now, I was so angry when I saw the question on that STAR test that was asking about why Prime Minister George Grenville decided that he didn't want a representative in Parliament for the colonists. Okay, but the way that it was written, that was the question. Why did he not want a representative in Parliament to represent the colonists? They had an entire paragraph written in Old English, presented in that way. And, when I saw that, I said, my kids know the answer to this, but categorically, they missed that question because of the way that it was presented. Even if it had been presented in standard English, they would have understood it. But that made me know that the goal here is not to know whether or not they know the information, but it's to raise the bar every time they begin to do well.
I mean, how else would we pull in money, right? And when I was thinking about all the legislation that was passed in the 89th cycle, so much to talk about, right? But
Right.
one of the things is like, instead of a high stakes test once a year, we're going to have 3 tests 3 times a year. And my first thought was, oh, so you get 9 times as much money because you have 9 times as many tests. Yes.
Yes.
Make it make sense, right? It
But
just,
in your opinion, I'm sorry, I have to ask this before I forget. In your opinion, and because you've been in all of these different variables politically, when you go and you talk to the public servants and you go and sit down with them, what is their reason? Because and the reason I ask this question is because it's apparent that they're not talking to actual educators in the classroom. So they may be talking to administrators, but we all know they just trying to save jobs and get more money for districts. So they're not gonna tell them the truth anyway. Right. So when you are sitting in these circles having these conversations with these public servants, and I'm not asking you to divulge all of the conversations, but what is the general consensus for them going along with these idiotic actions in the legislature?
So I would say that if we're talking about, for example, the Republican who currently holds the seat, Matt Morgan, I was told by someone who went to visit him on Wear Red Day, right? Teachers Day up at the legislature.
I was there. We were there. Yeah.
uh, so I was told that when asked, he said he doesn't agree with this, but if he wants to keep his seat, he's going to vote for it or else he's going to get primaried. So I believe that this is more about keeping power and prestige than it is about doing right by the constituents or the people of Texas.
We heard the same argument. We heard the same argument, and we're not going to divulge where we heard it from, but it was on this podcast. And what was told to us is that we've got to be very careful about what we raise flags about, because if we do, then if we need a favor from what's the guy's name? Morath or the governor or Abbott, then we're not going to be in a position to go back and get a favor. And I'm like, huh? You know,
yes.
What is our if the people who believe in us put us in the position to be the squeaky wheel for what is good for us, regardless of who we make mad, unless we're just thinking about that next step. Are we just simply thinking about that next step? Is that the goal?
I feel like that's a lot of the goals of politicians in general, which I think is really depressing, right? Rather than actually doing what you're elected to do, you're more concerned about, well, how do I stay in this position? Which I find troubling at best. I've said openly that if I were to get elected, I would be voting the proper way that my constituents wanted and according to what my moral compass was. And if I don't get reelected,
that's exactly what I told Rebecca. I said, Rebecca, let me tell you something. That this may not be what people want to hear, but I am going to represent the best interests of the people who put me here. And if I don't get reelected, that means maybe God has something else for me.
It wasn't meant to be then, right?
but here's so how do you translate? Okay. There's how do you translate that? Because what I'm finding out, even as I'm campaigning with Crystal, what I'm finding out is that just having conversations with constituents, there is a translation issue, right? There's a translation issue between people that are running, people that are already in government, and constituents, right? So how in your opinion, how do we inform the constituents about what's actually going on so they can be better, more
informed when they get to the polls?
Yes. So in my opinion, maybe it's not a surprising answer, but I believe we need more education to the public, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure y'all have heard people say, well, the only time we ever hear from y'all is when you need votes, right? And, can't argue with that, but I don't see people or the party or even local parties putting out like, hey, everybody come to this location and we're going to give you a rundown on the 10 most important issues or something. And I know that
you need to do that outside of elections.
That's right.
Yes. That should be happening like on at least a quarterly basis with the community, right?
Yes.
And it would be great if we had representatives who hold town halls, right? But we have that problem from local to national, right? I mean, Troy Nels hasn't held a town hall, and I don't know.
Well, you know what? Here's the thing, and this is what I told Rebecca the last time I ran. This is what I told Rebecca, and this is something that I'm so happy that I did. After that election, I was told, Crystal, because when we started the podcast, it was during the election, and my motto was from the schoolhouse to the state house. Mm-hmm. That was my motto, and everyone said, Crystal, that podcast is so effective in getting information out to people. Keep your podcast, keep that. So for the last 4 years, I've kept that podcast, and we've been able to continue to get information out to people that they wouldn't have had otherwise. And here's the thing, in doing that, people can, I'm not calling, I am not calling anyone out for this, because there are some office holders who do this. But Eliz, let's be clear. It's free to get on a podcast, on Facebook, on Instagram, even on TikTok, on YouTube, and have a outlet so that your constituents know what you're doing, even if you only do it twice a month. Your schedule may not be where it's conducive to do it every week, but to do that, and people know that you're trying to be transparent and you're trying to get them information, even about simple stuff like voting, simple stuff like, breaking it down so that people know when you don't vote, that's as good as a vote for the other party.
Right.
Just things like that. Rebecca and I, we have it's our podcast is free except for my software. And we've just built up an audience over the years, but it's free to do that. Why can't everybody do that?
It's a good question. I would say probably, at least we have a lot of the elders,
that's true.
Politicians in the Democratic Party, right? Can you see like Nancy Pelosi hopping on a TikTok and being like,
yeah. Well, you know what? And you're absolutely right. I get it, because my mother tells me that all the time. She'll say, I am not getting on that computer and doing anything. Don't put me on Facebook for anything. And I'm fine. But then again, my mother's not an office holder. But one of the best things it was that I did this go round was to get a strategist on board who is what is he called? Is he a millennial, Aaron?
Yeah.
A millennial. And
no, he's Gen Z.
He's Gen Z. He's Gen Z, because I think he's only 24.
Yeah,
he's only 24. So he was able to help us with a lot of this. But every one of those people has got either a granddaughter or a grandson, or someone on their staff has got a granddaughter or a grandson. All they got to do is push play and let that person sit in front of that camera.
True story.
Let's be clear.
Yeah.
So real quick, how has redistricting, I'm going to just switch gears just a tiny bit. How has redistricting affected your campaign or your district, or has it at all?
So are you talking about I need you to find 5 votes?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. Yeah, there's so much redistricting, right? So just wanted to clarify.
Yes.
That did not affect the House maps. So that only affected the congressional map. So in a positive sense, didn't have to switch gears. I'm sure Crystal was happy as well, because we knew what our districts would be.
Yes.
However, Matt Morgan, again, the representative of this district, voted in favor of redistricting. So I think, of course he did. So I think it just goes to show that this is just, a partisan game. It's middle school, schoolyard bully, like, well, I'm going to push you down. Well, okay, well, I'm going to do this to you. And I think it's really pitiful that the public servants that are paid with taxpayer money are acting in such juvenile manners that are completely antithetical to the purposes of their place in office
and their constituents. And here's the thing, Liz, if there is an entity that feels that their message is so strong and so powerful and so correct, let the voters tell you that on election day. You don't have to do anything to manipulate. If you really feel that your message is coming across that clearly and it's that strong, allow that to happen organically. Or does that automatically mean that if you go in there and let the cards fall where they may, that you're not going to get what you want?
That's it right there.
I think it's the latter, right? I think, as Rebecca said, that's it right there. I think the right is not as confident as they were heading into this cycle, right? I think they thought, Trump was the savior. He's going to fix the economy. I don't know how they thought that was going to happen, but I feel like they truly did believe that. And so when they couldn't, sprinkle magic dust and fix things, it was like, well, oh crap. What are we going to do to stop the annihilation of 2016?
Yeah, and the thing about it
2026, sorry.
I'm gonna be honest with you. I was absolutely floored when the first person to jump ship did so in such a public way, and it was a woman. Marjorie Taylor Greene.
I was just like,
I was, and the thing about it is, I'm gonna be honest with you. I always felt I really held my lawmakers, especially my national lawmakers, in very high regard. And what that means is that I place them in a place where their standards should be higher than the average person's standards, because we are all looking to them for direction, theoretically. But when I began to see, and this is even in the last term of President Trump, when I began to see grown men cower to another grown man, that made me sick to my stomach. I'm like, wait a minute, how are you afraid of another adult man? How is this?
And I think what it is too, it boils down to power, right? So I feel like it boils down to power. And see, I think people so underestimate what power is and what power does. We all know Abraham Lincoln said power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. But I don't think people understand to the degree of what that corruption of power does, right? You have people who are sitting in seats who have premium health plans. They don't have to worry about doctors, life insurance, or nothing else for them and their families for the rest of their lives, right? They can fly all over the country and the world on taxpayers' dollars, but they can still do it and not have to worry about, how I have to. They don't even have to plan the trips themselves. That's what they have staffers for, right? They don't have to worry about housing and how they're going to pay for that, because the government is paying for their houses in DC and in their districts. They don't have to worry about operation costs for their offices, because Congress is paying for that and paying in there. So that's what I'm saying. You have all of these benefits, and to somebody in the public eye, somebody who's not in that realm, you really don't understand what all of this, and we're talking about just the benefits of being a public office holder. We're not even talking about the power that you have simply over your constituents, how your constituents treat you. These politicians went from being public servants to now many celebrities.
But now, with that in mind,
so who's giving that up?
With that in mind, we've got a woman who was the first one to stand down against this, and who was absolutely shunned. But then, after that, you see several other people decide that they're not going to pursue their seat again. Even that, in a way, is the cowardly way to do that. Because instead of saying, listen, I don't agree with what you're doing, this is going to hurt my constituents. When you see these town hall meetings on television, and you see these angry constituents have to be taken out of the room, and these are people that supported the people that are on stage. And they won't even at that point say, listen, I didn't know it was going to be this way either, but I tell you what, I'm going to make sure that when I get in front of my room of colleagues, that I am going to fight for what is in your best interest. They still don't want to not kiss the boots.
No, because they're auditioning for an audience of one.
Right.
So
And
yes,
I mean, that's important to note, though, right? Because is this just a temporary thing, or is this going to turn into JD Vance and we're kissing his boots too? Or we see people doing that.
Well, we talked about that too, Liz. And here's the thing, and this is what I honestly believe. You know, every century or so, you come across someone who has the type. First of all, it has to be everything falling into place at the same time. You come across someone who has, not that it's good, but has the kind of charisma that people are enthralled with.
Yeah.
And JD Vance doesn't have that. He's not the he's not yeah, he's not the charisma guy. He's not. But
Right.
just like Rebecca said last week, good or bad, this guy had the charisma that people wanted to follow. And it's led us to where we are right now. But the very thought, Eliz, when we're talking about things like affordable health care, when we're talking about things like the SNAP snafu,
Mm.
any person who is willing to say, and the handlers would not allow him to actually say, I am keeping food out of the mouths of the elderly, the disabled, and infants until I get my way. The handlers wouldn't allow that. But that was basically what was being said non-verbally.
Right.
And no president in history has ever turned on their own people like that in order to get their way. What does that mean to you?
I think it's pretty straightforward that what we've thought about the president since the beginning, or what some have thought about of the president since the beginning, is true. He only cares about himself at the end of the day. And whatever he can do to maintain this illusion of being the mighty Trump,
Right.
I think he'll do it. And I don't think he actually cares about who suffers along the way, because it's not me. I think he's just very selfish, and I don't think he actually gives it enough thought. I don't know if he cares enough to give
I
it the
think you're
thought.
right. I think you're right.
so let me ask you a question. You represent Katy, well, your district is in Katy that you will be representing, right? So, when most people think of representing Katy, they think of affluent.
Not anymore. It's changed a lot with the 20 years.
Wait. For the most part, people still think that Katy is very affluent, very well to do, very, like, I should dare I say, if you don't have any money, you don't belong in the Katy area, kind of like that. So
It used to be that way.
so my question is, what is your constituency? Well, it's the two in one. What is your constituency comprises of, and what are some of the things that your constituents are worried about, as as your would be your constituency?
For sure. So I wouldn't say that your ideas about Katy are necessarily wrong. I think that there still is that idea about Katy, but I would say that Fort Bend County is one of the fastest, or is the fastest growing county in Texas, and one of the most diverse counties in the country.
Yes.
And so the idea that it's just a white affluent community is no longer the actual truth of what the representation looks like. So right now, HD 26 is about 41% Caucasian. It's about 11% African American or Black, 12% Black, 13% Hispanic, and the remainder is AAPI.
Okay.
So we have
It's very diverse.
very diverse in this
Yes.
population, and it has grown tremendously since, well, if we take 2016 for Trump's first term, the population has increased dramatically, and it's generally not been non-white individuals moving in.
Right.
Due to the proximity to the energy corridor and things like that, we get a lot of diverse populations here. And so my goal is to target all of these populations. So I plan on having a volunteer and campaign team that's comprised of individuals from all the different demographics, because I certainly don't think that I am the best representative to go speak to those individuals.
Right.
But once I have someone with me, a cultural broker per se, we can meet together and I can truly understand what their needs are and what their potential solutions are. Because I don't think that one person can understand the solutions for a whole diverse group of individuals. We have to have feedback coming in. So we plan to target it through a comprehensive phone banking, block walking, and text messaging outreach, and then having a digital campaign presence as well.
Okay, and what are some of the concerns that your constituents have about being, being taxpayer citizens in that area?
So I would say that education is probably a primary concern. Doesn't seem that Katy ISD can go a month without being in the national news for some reason or the other. And while a lot of that is due to the current board, the trickle down from the state legislature regarding public education has definitely been felt among the populations in HD 26. And so I think they really want more local control, right? But local control that's sane, right? Not MAGA.
Right. And not what moms and liberties produce.
Yeah, there you go. I would also say healthcare is a huge thing, especially with the current revocation of the subsidies. There's the doubling of healthcare premiums that we're seeing for people. And even if you're affluent, it's unaffordable, right? So it just shows that, okay, so not only are you helping not helping marginalized populations, but now you're taking down your supporters themselves. Right.
And then I wanted to I didn't mean to cut you off. I'm sorry.
No, you're totally good.
I wanted you to address this too. Jasmine Crockett was on MSNBC a couple of nights ago, and one thing that stood out to me, she was on Lawrence O'Donnell's show, and I learned something from that particular show. I did not know that Texas is 50th in healthcare.
Oh yeah.
And we have about 4 million plus people
Uninsured. That's right.
that are uninsured or low insured.
Underinsured. That's right.
So,
and the Texas legislature keeps rejecting the Medicaid expansion, which would cover an extra 1.2 million Texans. And that money, which is taxpayer money, is then diverted to states that do accept the Medicaid expansions. So we're essentially paying for individuals in Vermont or Virginia or California or Nebraska because our legislators think, well, we don't want to help these people out with the money they've already input to. It doesn't make any sense.
And Liz, here's the thing. I don't know if people are aware of this, but when we were looking at the situation that was going on with SNAP, automatically it kind of rolled over into the Affordable Health Care Act. We are not simply looking at people who are receiving government benefits that are enrolled in affordable health care. We're not simply looking at people who may be disabled that are enrolled. We're looking at many entrepreneurs, the small business owners who are the backbone of this country. The farmers, these people were enrolled in affordable health care because it enabled them to have the type of health care that they couldn't have before. And when you snatch the bottom from under that, you're affecting so many people that I don't think a lot of people, people were thinking about affordable health care being almost like a welfare type situation, which was not the case. It was
Right.
it has been allowing people who could not afford certain types of health care, and people who are trying to maintain small businesses to be able to have health care and not depend on showing up in an emergency room. How is revoking that going to be something that is universally positive for our country, or for
Probably
Texas, or our
the
districts?
same way that getting rid of childhood vaccinations is going to be overwhelmingly positive for our country, right?
Right.
The stuff doesn't make sense. But I think if we're to look at the healthcare issue in particular and removing the subsidies, I think it comes back to the exact same issue that we talked about with making more standardized tests. It gives the opportunity for health insurance companies to make more money,
Yes.
and more money just pulling from the pockets of the people rather than anything else, which is not the way that things should be done.
I'm gonna allow, because we're quickly running out of time. We got about 10 minutes
to wrap up.
we got about 10 minutes because we started a little bit late. But I'm gonna let Rebecca take this last question, and Liz, with your permission, if we need to, we may have to have a part 2 of this.
Oh, let's do it, y'all.
because in theory, think about it, we don't know what they're gonna do tomorrow. So we may need to have a part 2 of this because people need to know this stuff. But Rebecca.
Okay,
Yes.
so now that you have explained that, Liz, and I want to say you explained it eloquently,
Yes.
and where people can understand it. So, what is that going to look like for you as state representative? Because we're claiming your victory now.
That's right.
What is that going to look like for you as a state representative? And what can you do about, or what vote can you maneuver or debate about? Because you do have degrees in healthcare, so this is your je ne sais quoi. So, what can you do as a state representative to help push the needle for better health care for Texas?
Yes.
So I think this is a tough question, just to put that out there initially. It kind of reminds me, my father has asked me multiple times why I keep doing this and why I would want to go into a legislature that I would be in the minority and by a lot, right? What are you going to accomplish, right? So first, I would say it depends on how this next election cycle goes, because the makeup of the state house could change dramatically.
Absolutely.
And that's the ideal answer.
That's what we're counting on, Liz.
I mean, let's count on that.
Yes.
But I think the more realistic idea is then, okay, so you're in the minority. You're not going to be able to, as a freshman legislator, probably get anything past yourself. So what could you do? And I think being a voice for the constituency and causing a ruckus, to say,
Yes.
so that it becomes more of a state issue that the Republicans are forced to address,
Right.
for fear of what happens, or the repercussions in 2028 could provide some leverage. I also think there's the opportunity to bring resources home from the state to the community itself. So, for example, if we could get more public funding for mental health care services, which I think is something that we direly need, especially after we saw the spike in mental health care issues post-COVID. We need that for our schools. We need that for our communities, period. End of story. And so I think also working with partner organizations like the AFT, right? ATPE, different organizations to amplify the message of what is going wrong. And then using data to support the rationale. I feel like so much of
our time as teachers.
Yeah.
You gotta use data to fix the problem.
I mean, I know it feels like a bad 4-letter word these days. Like, oh, well, I prefer to go on my feelings, right? Or what my Truth Social says or whatever. But I really think that data and empirical evidence is the proper way to make decisions.
Right.
So hopefully we get to a point in the legislature where people are willing to look at data again, and there's the opportunity to come up with bipartisan legislation that actually improves society so that people in HD 26 and all of Texas can actually be productive members of society without worrying about where their next meal is coming from.
Yes, you're absolutely right about that. And here's the thing: you made a point about something, and I'm just gonna make it really clear for people who may not have understood what she was saying. Sometimes your job, and to your dad too. I'm gonna say this to your dad. Sometimes your place at a certain point in time is to be the squeaky wheel. And if you can get 4 or 5 or 6 other squeaky wheels, they may be the freshmen in, but if you can get those squeaky wheels, then the media starts to listen. And when the media starts to listen, everyone else starts to listen. And you have a situation whereby you've made something audible that people are listening to now that they may not have been before. But you can't be just one squeaky wheel, because something else will drown that out. But if you've got squeaky wheels stacked on top of each other, that's a siren.
And if you're not doing it for anything other than the people, right?
That's
if
right.
If you're willing to just be like, hey, if I'm a one-term person, but I'm going to make this a known issue, cool, right? As long as you bring attention and you can eventually affect positive change, I would say, hey, you've been productive.
Wait a minute, something just dawned on me, and I have to ask this. It just hit me. My teacher brain is still on.
Okay.
But did you just say that Texas is paying premiums? The
money is diverted for
premiums to other states while we're
a very delayed reaction, Rebecca. But yes, back to Medicaid expansion.
You gotta think about it for a minute.
So when we don't use our Medicaid expansion funds, we're essentially sending that to states for them to use on their Medicaid.
You mean to tell me, very delayed, I know. So
you're paying for someone in California, Rebecca.
People need to hear that.
You look like you're about to punch me in the face.
We're 50 in healthcare, and we're paying premiums for people in other states.
True
and
story.
with that in mind, we gotta have a cliffhanger here, because we gotta bring your Liz back. Yes, we gotta have a cliffhanger here.
It was very delayed, I know, but it's just
it's totally cool.
Yeah, but people need to know and understand that we're getting ready to go to the polls in less than 90 days. People need to know that. What you just said, people need to know and understand that. And that's why we got to share this kind of podcast, because people have got to know that. Nobody knew that. I can almost tell you, a lot of people don't know that. But you know what? That's the kind of thing that would, if it were me being affected like that, that would make me change my vote when I go in March. If I'm someone who had voted,
who would vote into that program, right?
That's right.
Yeah. And that's the part that I had to just process for like 6 seconds, because we're paying into that. And the very service that we're paying into, Texas can't get, and you're paying it for people in New York, in Florida, and California.
That's wild, right?
And your lawmakers know this. and they're allowing you to do it, and they're allowing that money to be diverted that way. So keep that in mind. But Eliz,
and
yes.
just for the cliffhanger, we can also talk about how that's happening with our charter schools next time.
Hold that thought. We're going to get you back here, Liz, as soon as you can. As soon as you can come. Hold that thought, because
I'm holding.
We didn't even jump on school vouchers, charter school. We didn't even jump into that. But we got to do it. We got to do it, Rebecca. But with that in mind,
I just want to apologize to Rebecca because she looks so mad right now. I feel like I just totally ruined her boxing day. Or maybe she's now ready to box. Who knows?
Yes, Rebecca is very, very passionate. She's very passionate.
I'm just at a loss.
Yes.
I'm
So let me tell you what's going to happen now. But this is great. This is the great thing about Rebecca. What you just said, she's going to go, and in the next 3 days, she's going to find out every fact about it that she can. And she's going to come back. Oh, she's going to come back, and she's going to be ready to lay it on thick. But Liz, before we let you go, can you please tell our viewers, and we'll make sure that we put this in the comments. Can you tell our viewers if they'd like to support your campaign, if they would like to come out and block walk, to be part of your phone bank, to be part of you becoming the next representative for House District 26, how can they reach out to you?
Thank you so much for allowing me to talk about that. And for letting me come on, period. So I would love it if you guys would want to send all your $10,000 checks to the Texas campaign. So you can go to www.eliz4tx.com. And that's where our website is. And we have our Act Blue set up on there. And you can also sign up to be part of the campaign, which will include the block walking and the phone banking. Or if you just want to reach out to me directly, you can just email me at eliz@eliz4tx.com.
Awesome. Well, Eliz Markowitz, thank you so much for coming on.
Crystal and Rebecca, and I'm sorry, Rebecca.
Okay, she still got that look on her face.
I know, right? Hey, you're the one who has to hang out with her after this, right?
I know. I'm afraid. But
well, thank you so much. I really appreciate the opportunity to chat with you. This was a blast.
I know it was. It was. And before I let everybody go, I got to get in my plug. If you would like to support my campaign, you simply going to go to crystaldillardfortexas.com. You've probably been seeing my stuff all over Facebook today, but I finally had some time and a chance to post some stuff. I haven't done that in a little while, but please reach out. You'll be seeing more information about joining us in our block walks and in our phone banks. But please reach out. Donations, my donations are through ActBlue. You can you'll find that on my website, crystaldillardfortexas.com, and you can also go to my GoFundMe page. It's set up especially for campaigns. Some people, Liz, let me tell you what I found. There are some people that don't necessarily like to donate at some of the designated donation sites because they feel like they'll be bombarded with a whole lot of stuff after. And it's kind of true. So we went ahead and set up that GoFundMe for people who want to do it that way. But my Crystal Loves Texas viewers, we feel obligated to bring to you some perspectives that we know are true and correct perspectives for us at this place where we are in time, because no one is coming to save us. We've got to save ourselves. And I hope that you enjoyed Dr. Eliz for Texas House District 26. You know now how to get a hold of her. We're going to put all of her information in the comments, and we're going to have her back just as quick as she can, because we've got to talk about vouchers. We've got to talk about a little bit more about testing, and we've got to talk about charter schools.
Yeah.
So
I'll try to think of some more hidden truth bombs, Rebecca.
Oh gosh,
drop on you next time.
I don't think nothing can solve that one.
There you go, right?
But thank you guys so much. Thank you, Liz, for joining us. And Rebecca, like we say every week, we can do it. Bye bye.